Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and Discussion time. It is December 2nd, 2019. It's not hurricane season any longer in the Atlantic, and as long as I'm talking about the Typhoon, Tisoy, or however you say it in the Philippines, I will continue with this title card that says Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. After that, maybe tomorrow or certainly by Wednesday, this will change to the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion, just to keep it exactly proper and, appropriately titled. That's what my plan is. All right, so we do have a typhoon out in the western Pacific here affecting the Philippines, and it made landfall several hours ago. I don't know all the geographic names down here properly enough just yet to start pronouncing all of these names, but it has made landfall probably as a Category 3 equivalent. There's no recon, so it's hard to say. There are several chasers down there, James Reynolds, Josh Morgerman, and we have a guy down there, Brent Lynn, one of our partners and one of our patrons. He works with me. I'll show you some of what he has done in just a moment. But here is the shortwave infrared satellite view from the Weather Nerds site, and it's moved inland now. Very heavy rainfall. And with these tropical cyclones, they don't have to be super typhoons to create super problems. So very heavy rain over rugged terrain, the elevation there, the volcanic structures, etc. We call that orographic lift, where the moisture and the airflow gets forced up over the mountains, and it wrings out that moisture, so you have enhanced rainfall along those slopes. So the rivers are going to swell, and that's going to be a big problem potentially. And it'll be interesting to see what the different chasers report in terms of their pressure gauges, any wind estimates, etc. That's the one positive thing about having cyclone chasers, whoever they may be, is we tend to get some pretty good data no matter how they do it. We just have a different way of doing things by deploying unmanned cameras to cover more areas, but also to be in areas where it could be potentially lethal for us to stand in person. That being said, here's a Google Earth view of the area. Our guy, Brent, is right up here in the San Jose area. We have a camera system located right down here in the Joran. I don't know how you pronounce that exactly. It's like Joran or something like that. I'm going to zoom in on this in just a moment. The typhoon made landfall, though, farther to the south, closer to Tabaco City and down here. It was a little bit of a southerly track compared to what I thought would happen. And a lot of the computer models did have, over the last day or so, before landfall, a track something like that. I mean, it's not that far off, but nevertheless, it's impacting a very large portion of the Philippines up here, especially the southern portion of Luzon. Not so much in Manila. Fortunately, I can back this out just a little bit. Manila is up here to the northwest of everything, the main core area of the typhoon, which is now covering this region. And, it'll pass off to the south and then die off over to the west of the Philippines from there, but not before dumping tremendous amounts of rain on this peninsula that sticks down here. And it'll be interesting to see what goes on. It's nighttime there. It's about 13 hours ahead of me. It's 3:41 p.m. where I am, so it's 4:41 a.m. in the Philippines. And like I said, we have a guy there, Brent. Nice hammy picture of him there, wearing the old HurricaneTrack shirt. So real quick bio on Brent. Brent is one of our patrons, a financial supporter, but also what we call an all-hands-on-deck supporter, so sort of an active investor. He's investing in the future of this business, of our endeavors, but he's also going with us. He owns his own business. He's from the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. John, and he's able to travel whenever he needs to, generally speaking. He helped me out during Florence, during Michael, pivotal work during Michael to secure the GoPro camera system that I have worked on for the better part of about 14 years to get it to that point. We covered all of this in our documentary from 2018, and Brent is one of those central characters that really helped a lot of this to happen. It's not just me. I might be the front man. I'm the guy that does these videos, but it really is a team effort. So there he is with his GoPro on the monopod, wearing the HurricaneTrack shirt, his backwards hat. He's ready to go. He knows hurricanes. He went through the core of Irma in the Virgin Islands. He was, of course, with me and Michael. He was with us on the Dorian mission, and at least 90% of it. It took so long that he eventually had to go back and tend to his business. I mean, after 2 weeks, you can't just walk away from your business forever, right? So now he's in the Philippines, and he's done some really good work. Real quick, though, this is where Brent lives. This is a live shot right now. You know how on Twitter or whatever they'll go, and now a live look at whatever. Well, this is true. This is a live look from Brent's house in the U.S. Virgin Islands down in Fish Bay in St. John. A very, very nice day. We can back it up a little bit here. See what it looked like earlier today. Oh, yeah, quite a different day in the Virgin Islands than it was and has been and is now in the Philippines. This is earlier today down in St. John. Nice sunrise, a little different than the sunrise that Brent is going to get, and his driver, Angelo, in the Philippines right now. So this is what it looks like at Brent's home base, his home in St. John. Again, there's a picture of Brent. So what has he been doing? Well, we took our camera technology. We've talked about this, Brent and I, for several weeks leading up to this, even during Dorian. What's next? What can we do next? Well, he took the technology that I have developed using off-the-shelf technology. I don't want it to sound like I invented all of this, because I didn't. I just took stuff that already existed and repurposed it to fit our needs. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I just want to make sure I'm not mistaking and that I came up with all of this myself. I didn't. But what we're doing with it, absolutely something I'm very proud of, and we've done a lot with it, of course, especially in the last several years, 2017, 18, and this year, and the whole project dates back more than 14, 15 years ago. So right there, sitting on top of that pole, see that orange box? That is the special ops version, if you will, the easily airlineable, is that a word? Very easy to just take it with you on the airlines version of our GoPro camera system. Now, anybody can put a GoPro out there. James Reynolds does that. He does a really good job. But they don't last that long, as he knows. You can buy battery extenders and so forth. But what we have done, as you know, if you followed my work, especially these last few years, we figured out a way to power the GoPros for more than a day, and in some cases 36 hours, in high-definition video or time-lapse images where they take a picture every X amount of seconds. And so Brent set up one of our camera systems on this pole here at a house here in the Joran, or however you say it, area. And let me show you exactly where that is. I failed to do that, so let me back up and show you where that is. I think you're going to be fascinated with this. It's down here along a river delta, and I just need to find it. Come on. All right, getting closer. Is it down here? Where is it? I knew I should have pinpointed it. Hang on. You know what? Let's just type it in. That's the easiest thing to do. Joran. OAN. Thank you. Bingo. There we go. All right, so there it is. There's the river. I like this. It actually highlighted the whole river system. So this river system, now that I'm back on track after not being fully prepared, there we go. This river comes down out of the highlands there, and it's got this delta, and the camera is actually sitting on this bridge right here, or real close to it, in one of these houses over here, overlooking this bridge as this river comes through the area. I suspect that it'll fill up if it hasn't done so already. It could become raging. It could overtop the bridge. And so what Brent has done is he has put this camera system up there, and it is taking a picture every 30 seconds, a nice high-definition picture every 30 seconds. So we're going to have a time-lapse spanning a long time. We're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures that we will then take off the GoPro, assuming everything works. You never know when gremlins get in there and screw everything up. And we'll make a time lapse out of it. And it can be very helpful in understanding. Sorry, Brent, got to get you out of there. The potential flooding from this river. All right, and that's something I'm very interested in as a physical geographer and as in my role of studying tropical cyclones. In addition, the box is able to breathe. The pressure port on this box, air molecules are able to get in and out, but it's still sealed. I know that's weird to conceptualize, but you could take it underwater for a certain amount of time, and it wouldn't leak. There's a certain rating that it has, whatever. So Pelican cases are known for that. So air, if you don't seal off that valve, can come and go, and so it is possible to measure changes in air pressure. And so inside of this box as well is a drop 3 pressure sensor from Kestrel, and it's measuring pressure data as well from the moment that he reset it and initialized it and he set it up, which was many, many hours ago, until he picks it up. And so we will have a complete pressure trace of the Typhoon from this location, which is closer down here. Now that I can mark it, right there is where the camera system is. And so it may have gotten in the northern part of the eye. We'll have to wait and see about that when all is said and done. I am very, very proud of this effort. It's difficult to navigate this area. He's never been there. Hats off to Brent for his determination, his willingness to fund this himself and take on this whole thing. Again, he is up here in the San Jose area. He said it's been windy, rainy. Of course it has. Pressure down to 979 millibars where he is. So let's draw a 979 in there. And the camera system is located right down here, I believe it is, right at the delta, which is a lot closer to where the center is. And so we'll see the difference, the gradient in between those locations, and can compare that to other readings of the other chasers as they publish their stuff online in the coming days and weeks. It'll be an interesting case study. All right, so we're looking forward to that. The bridge that hopefully we're going to be able to see is right here. And if this thing gets taken out, I have no idea what conditions are like there right now. First of all, I hope all of these folks here evacuated and got out of the way. This bridge could be taken out. We're talking many, many inches of rainfall over a short period of time, the orographic lift of the volcanic mountains around there, etc. Yes, that river basin could be a big problem. I'm really hopeful that if something devastating happened, that we then captured it. It's almost like hurricane algebra, right? If this, then that. It's the way math works. And it's the same thing here. We're not wishing for people to be affected, but if they are, we want to be able to capture it. I think that makes the most sense. You want us to do that. We are equipped. We're there. I'm here in North Carolina. Brent is there. We're working as a team. You get the idea. You know, Josh does the same thing, working with people on the outside sometimes. James Reynolds as well. We crowdfund it to gain the funding. We crowdsource it to gain help and insight from people. What an amazing world. So stay tuned. I will let you know. I will be visiting with Brent in about 10 days up in New York City. We will go over everything, and I'll show you what we got. It could be very exciting. Or it could be a big bust if the camera didn't work for some reason. You never know. That's the one thing about this. You just never friggin' know. All right, so in the off-season, and we will eventually transition this entirely over to the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion off-season edition, we will be looking at several things, one of which is parameters that would shape next year's hurricane season, perhaps, and one of those would be sea surface temperatures, and especially departures from normal. Now, this updated today, December 2nd, and just a real quick look at it, you notice the equatorial Pacific here, the ENSO region that we call it, ENSO, E-N-S-O, for El Nino Southern Oscillation. A few warm patches in here, but also some colder patches. So overall, warm, neutral, ENSO neutral, slightly warmer than average, but certainly not a raging El Nino, and also not a cold period or La Nina. Conversely, in the Atlantic, Generally speaking, most of the main development region through here at or slightly below the long-term average, but the rest of the subtropics up here, the Western Atlantic, Gulf, Caribbean, generally running above normal, but nothing alarmingly so. It is pretty warm compared to average to the south of Africa here along the equatorial region. Some people kind of say almost like an Atlantic El Nino, but I don't know if there really is such a thing as that. I'd have to study further. But it is curious when you get this warm blob to the south of the continent of Africa, the west coast of Africa, something to watch. And this is what we will do. We will be able to watch this evolve on a weekly basis, and we will be watching for two distinct things. And we'll put two question marks here. The first, what happens in the equatorial Pacific with El Nino? I don't know. Nobody knows for sure. We'll be watching that. We'll put a plus sign. If it's positive or warm, that will tend to suppress Atlantic hurricane activity next year. I think you know that. If it's negative or a La Nina cold episode, that could lead to a more active hurricane season next year. But we also have to put a question mark over here. How will the Atlantic basin be sea surface temperature wise next year? That's not the only driver, not by a long shot, but it is a big driver, and we don't know yet. So a warmer main development region through here and a warmer North Atlantic off the chart way up here closer to Greenland, etc., tends to give us what we call a positive AMO, or a warm Atlantic multidecadal oscillation, just a fancy way that scientists refer to a warmer than average Atlantic. So we will watch this on a weekly basis and see how this evolves. That's the beauty of today's technology, is we can do so. We will also rely on people such as Ben Knoll. He's over in the New Zealand area, but he's very helpful because he is skilled at several things: meteorology, climatological research, etc., and awesome map making. And as a geographer, I love that. I think that's great. And so we will be dialing into what Ben has to say. And here's an example that he posted recently on Twitter that, based on the current life cycle of the MJO, so forth and so on into early December, whatever. The second paragraph is what I'm most interested in, that the low-frequency forcing from the positive Indian Ocean dipole, that's just a fancy way, a scientific way of talking about the sea surface temperature pattern and pressure patterns in the Indian Ocean, those will slowly fade as more, and this is the key, of a La Nina-like regime arrives. Very interesting. So, forcing in the atmosphere, upward motion, sea surface temperature anomalies where the warm water is versus the cold water, these are big puzzle pieces that we can watch in the off-season, and that's exactly what we will do. All right, another tool, not as helpful, I've learned in the past several years, but we'll look at it as a guidepost. That's the conglomeration of different El Nino forecasts, and you get this nice chart from different agencies. This one happens to be the International Research Institute and part of the Climate Prediction Center. This is up in New York, I think from Columbia University, if I'm not mistaken. And this is just a nice way to visualize it, that going out through July, August, September, way out in time, generally speaking, most of the modeling indicating neutral conditions, only just shy of 30% chance of El Nino by next summer. Let's see if that changes. What we will be watching for, in my opinion, is most important, is this parameter right here, this blue. Does this start to increase as all of this moves forward in time? So everything will be moving from right to left as we go forward in time. Does that make sense? And we'll get clearer pictures. So we'll watch this. It's the ENSO forecasting stinks, honestly. The Euro always forecasts an El Nino, it seems. Whatever. But it's just stuff we can watch, and especially this, and then some of the insight. This is all from computer models. This is a real guy. Ben really exists, as far as I know. I've seen video of him shooting basketball, so I think he's real, right? Just kidding there. Of course he's real, but we can get his insight, and that's my point. Computer models are good, but the insight is better. All right, we will also focus on lower 48 weather, looking for big impact storms. I want to keep you hurricane ready, but also weather aware. Weather is a big deal. It affects everybody, whether we know it or not. Sometimes it can be very impactful. And I will be looking for especially two things in the winter: big coastal storms affecting New England in particular, because we can deploy some equipment up there that we use in hurricanes. Anything along the coast here that would be a big nor'easter type situation, yes, we'll be focusing on that. So this is a primary target of my interest for the winter, as well as maybe something here in the plains, especially Oklahoma, Kansas region, maybe even farther to the west over in this area. As you get those low pressure areas that come out into the plains, you get those big blizzards. That would be fascinating. And then in the spring, which is, a ways away, we will be watching this area in Tornado Alley for the potential of doing something out there. No, not tornado chasing per se, but some ideas that I've got where we could use our unmanned cameras and, set them up. Let's just pretend that there is a high risk, day one high risk for like this area right here. I would be really interested in putting cameras, something like this, several of them, all along the eastern side and then up, maybe away from there, something like that. Those dots could all be camera systems, just as an example, to capture whatever happens in that area like a net. Instead of running around chasing with all the thousands of other people that do that, set up a net, see what you catch. That makes sense, right? I mean, come on. And then maybe, just maybe, we take our weather balloon out there that we use for hurricanes. We've launched it one time. That was Hurricane Nate in 2017. All the rest have been testing. Maybe we launch the weather balloon in a big high-risk day when the supercells get going and see what they look like from the stratosphere. That could be interesting. I always want to be able to contribute something back to the science and not just get in the way and, be another dude on the road chasing tornadoes. That's just, I don't know, it's just me. That's all it is. You can do what you want, but I want to be able to contribute to the science. That's just how I am. All right, we'll watch that. And that being said, how about the next several days? This is the current GFS from this morning. Here's the eastern United States, Florida, the Gulf Coast, West Coast, California, Baja, Mexico. Put this into motion using the slider. And the storm bringing snow and ice and everything to the northeast today departs. Pretty windy there, though. You see that? Lots of isobars there right off of New England, the Gulf of Maine, off of Chatham, Mass, etc., Cape Cod. That departs, and then look, when we get towards the middle of the week, there's another storm system that comes into the California coast, into the desert southwest, not as strong, so that by Friday, wow, look at that. Talk about a juxtaposition, a contrast to what we just had Thanksgiving week. A week later, roughly, the map is almost blank. Little low pressure there over the southeast, but overall, the next several days going out to a week, not bad in terms of any major storm systems. Those are absent. The key here will be, do we get a lot of Arctic air draining down into the lower 48 with an active subtropical jet and other storm systems coming in? The more that we get cold air coming down this way and an active southern stream, the storminess would focus along the east coast. If we have most of the activity coming off the Pacific or the Pacific Northwest, then the storm systems will tend to be a little bit less fierce, and the cold won't be as severe. I do know enough about winter weather to generally understand that. It's early December. We have a long way to go. We will see what happens. All right, a couple of things to make you aware of. If you are on Patreon, one of our patrons, our podcast exclusively for Patreon begins Wednesday. Stories from the Hurricane Highway, Episode 1, drops Wednesday evening. The podcast is all about my career, how I started, and the many, many years, the many hundreds of thousands of miles driven down the Hurricane Highway, that old metaphor. And then in January, an actual web series. The podcast, of course, is audio in this case. But a web series, kind of like a television series, will be produced. And that begins in January, also on Patreon. And we do have our videos, though, on Amazon Prime 2017 and 2018. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can go to Amazon Prime Video, check that out. Working ahead to plow forward as we get into 2020 and do some exciting things next year. Speaking of that, one announcement, and then I'm going to let you go, I promise. By the way, these Monday updates, they would typically be rather lengthy because we will have a lot to talk about. And that's the good thing about these videos, is I can use them to educate you. I found out today, exciting announcement, that the National Hurricane Conference in Orlando, that's where it'll be held next year, I will be doing a workshop with several other people to be named later. I'm going to wait for them to make the official announcement on the other folks about the field work that we do and the unmanned camera systems, etc. It will be a workshop about safely documenting the impacts of tropical cyclones, April 7th at the National Hurricane Conference in Orlando, Florida. So register today, take that workshop. I'll be one of the speakers. I'll have 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm very excited about that. I'll talk about that more, and we're going to do some exciting things in and around that during the week. A meet and greet and a users group meeting for our patrons, our YouTube followers, etc. in Orlando that week. Next April. Mark it down. It's happening. I'm very excited. So I appreciate the acceptance of my proposal from the committee at the National Hurricane Conference. It is a really good opportunity to get in front of law enforcement, emergency managers, etc. And it's an honor and a privilege, and I can't wait. April 7th, 2020 in Orlando. We'll talk about it more later. All right, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I do appreciate it as always. It's the off season now, and after this typhoon's over and gone, we'll focus more on off-season stuff. So I appreciate you being with me. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you again sometime tomorrow.